The human being and dogs, the oldest friendly relationship between man and animal in our history. Way before we ride horses, hoard cattle, and even accepted that cats live in our same space, these loyal descendants of wolves were already in our side, protecting our things, hunting with us, and even being alert at all times in case of anything bad happens. But despite the common belief that we domesticated wild wolves and that eventually these became our faithful companions, well, it really was the other way around. It was the meekest and calmest wolves that slowly were approaching our camps to eat the leftovers of what we ate the night before. But if for some reason this connection so impressive never happened, my name is Rafael Peraza and this is What If Dogs Had Never Existed. Before we start, remember that in this video we only seek to entertain. The idea is only to imagine a world where a specific event did not happen and to inquire about what will change. But first, a little context. The idea of domestic dogs has existed even before human beings knew how to read or write as such, and our relationship with them was basically one of mutual benefit. We are hunters of nature. Our species has been gathering groups of individuals to organize hunts for more than 500,000 years, and our ancestors were constantly looking for ways to improve. We broke stones to be sharpened, we stick them to strong branches to make spears, we sew nets to immobilize our prey, and although our most useful weapon was always our wit, our brain, many times we need that killer instinct, that predatory way of life. And that instinct, that way of hunting a prey, was imprinted on the wolf's brain. Although it was the humans who started using the wolves to help us in our hunts, they were these animals the ones who took the first step. We did not consume every part of our prey, always leaving a considerable sum of leftovers. That's why many wolves began to wander around our camps, eating what we left so they would not have to be constantly hunting. Just like human beings, these animals also had hierarchies, and many times, although the entire herd will spend energy catching a prey, if this was not big enough, only the leaders of the group will eat. It is believed that before the connection between humans and wolves were established, many of them died of malnutrition, especially in winters where it was more difficult to hunt. And it is for this reason that many began to see the humans as a life option, not only to flee from their evil leaders, but not to die of hunger as well. In the end, we saw our animal competition as a great ally and decided to strengthen our relationship with them. But this didn't happen from one day to the next. Either way, this was a perfect combination, the brain of the human being and the murderous instinct of the wolf. Quickly, the hunts were more efficient, more food was obtained and fewer men were lost. More food and more men meant that small human settlements grew faster and faster, to the point that there were so many people in the groups that the mobilization of their things and therefore of people as such became very difficult, and therefore the need to establish towns and because of this, the agricultural revolution arrived. Most scholars agree on one thing: wolves were the first animal to be domesticated in history by men. We feed them, we took care of them, we hunt with them, and we consider them part of the tribe. And over time, the ferocious wolf became loyal dogs. It was a win-win relationship for each side. It could be said that the definitive separation between wolves and dogs dates from about 30,000 years in the past. This means that it is around at that time that our alternate reality of a world without dogs begins. For a long time, there was been a debate about where in the world wolves were domesticated first. Whether it was Europe or Asia, both continents were the homes of the greatest ancient civilizations and precursors of the modern ones. And in the end, it was possible to conclude that in both continents this practice was carried out with very little difference in time. Therefore, the non-existence of dogs will directly affect the history and development of almost everyone in the planet. But how is it possible that dogs will never come to exist? As well as in our video of What If America Had Not Existed, the answer is very simple. The truth is that even if not so aggressive wolves wouldn't come close to us, eventually we will find a way to make them work for our benefit. Horses never took that first step. It was us seeing their speed and easy movement that we approached, fed, and took care of them to eventually be able to ride them. And more often, we were not so friendly with other animals. In ancient times, we captured elephants and hurt them for us to use them as tanks on the battlefield. The Romans captured lions, made them almost starve to death, and then released them in coliseums to devour men and thus entertain people, and let alone the bulls, right? So sooner or later, the human being will domesticate the wolf by hook or by crook. So without giving the matter much thought and trying not to complicate much more this matter, let's just say that wolves went extinct about 40,000 years ago. And yes, many will say this is almost impossible, but technically the original wolves from which the dogs came out became extinct. These wolves, in our reality, in our present, are distant cousins. So, for the sake of the video, again, let's just say that in this alternate reality, the wolf went extinct for some other reason. Although nowadays our body no longer receives so many nutrients from the meat due to the evolution of our bodies and all the chemical and nutritional processes through which the cattle and all the farm animals pass, during our initial evolutionary process, the meat and fire were primordial actors in the growth and development of our brain. The power to hunt and cook our prey was what actually separated us more from our chimpanzees cousins. All the essential properties and nutrients that the meat had, plus the greater use that we gave it when cooking it, helped our brain to work better, to grow better. Human fossils from hundreds of thousands of years ago show how many died from having a bad diet, and their skulls revealed the problems that the brain went through. But after the introduction of meat, everything changed. And why do I mention all this? Because without the existence of dogs, our efficiency at the time of hunting would not have been the same. And having less meat, then not only would there be fewer humans, but also brain development. Clearly, we will not be delayed for millions of years in our evolution by not eating enough protein during our last 30,000 years of development, but I am almost certain that at least we will not have reached the agricultural revolution at the time we did in the real past. Maybe it will take a few hundred years more, at least in Europe and Asia, where dogs were of greater help. It is not a coincidence that in the continents where this connection between wolf and human did not occur, they were colonized by Asia or Europe at a certain point, these continents being Africa, America, and Oceania. I even dare to say that the difference in size of both body and brains between natives and Europeans exists in part due to the little protein consumption that the natives have in comparison to the Europeans. So that also gives us a lot to think about, since you could say that this technological and biological difference between both groups in discussion, it is due to the poor feeding of some and the help of the dogs in others, so that they could get more meat in their beginnings. But remember, this is just a theory. The Egyptians, for example, depended so much on dogs for their daily lives that many of their gods were represented with the shape of this animal mixed with a human. Greeks and Romans used them constantly in battles, and were also the first to register their love and the importance they give to the dogs, both outside and inside their homes. So in this reality where dogs do not exist, not only do they have delayed Europeans and Asian development, but when eventually great societies and empires were created, their military strategies and their way of life would not be the same. But the use of these animals was not only military. Hundreds of civilizations dating even 2000 years before Christ used dogs to track people, help them, and much more. Oh, and by the way, taming horses would have been more difficult without the previous experience with dogs, delaying many European and Asian cultures even more. All this means that when Europeans or Asians eventually decided to look for new lands or trade routes and encounter new worlds such as America, Australia, and many other islands and lands in the globe, they may no longer have such a marked technological advantage. Maybe societies like the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, and much others will be at the same level as the Europeans. And yes, maybe the Europeans will bring diseases that will kill thousands of natives, but who knows? It is even possible that the discovery of the new worlds in this reality goes in the opposite direction. But hey, this is just a thought. a very distant possibility. In this reality, even fashion changes. The trends of dressing up like your dogs, of pampering them a lot and buying and finding exotic breeds to make them look more elegant or simply more expensive is nothing new. In the Victorian era, dogs of extravagant races were symbols of power and status. Many of the clothes of the moment were inspired by the pelts of these pets, and the weirder they were, you were superior to others. And without dogs, I imagine that this would not be the same, or maybe some other animal like cats would have taken that position, but I doubt that, to be honest. Although for a long time the concept of war dogs had been forgotten by now and being replaced by vigilance dogs, fashions, affection and simpler things, when the great wars knock on the door, the human imagination raced in order to get any kind of advantage over the enemies. And during the world wars, many dogs paid the price. The tank dogs would reach the battlefield. This idea was pretty horrible. They made them almost starve to death and then put food on their tanks, enemy tanks. They repeat this again and again, so when the battle came, they free them so that when seeing enemy tanks, they will begin to run towards these, and once they were underneath the tanks, well, the bombs that they had attached were detonated. These dogs were used by both American and Soviet troops. And here we reaffirm the argument that many strategies of the battlefield must change in this alternate history. The good thing is that through technology advance, dogs return to take a place much more quiet and safe with humans, used in therapy, to make company, to help the police to find specific objects, to cheer up entire families, and many more things. And obviously, this will also change. Long story short, it is very difficult that in less than 20 minutes we can explore a completely new world where dogs will not have existed. But we can conclude that it is very possible that the social and technological development in Europe and Asia will be delayed a bit due to the lack of protein that was obtained while hunting with dogs in the past. That maybe there wouldn't be a big difference between societies distributed around the world. That fashion, war and other things will change drastically, and therefore we will not feel the love and loyalty that these faithful animals give to millions daily. Well, my friends, so with this we finish today. If you like this type of video in particular, subscribe now. I will talk about alternate realities, history, the future of technology and many other things. If you have already subscribed and you want to help the channel grow, you could also help me on Patreon. Remember to hit the like button, share the video, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day and thanks for watching.